I was ripped off. The seller did not deliver what he said he was going to deliver from the auction. Inside this box, there's a PS5 that I only paid $40 for. At least the seller said there's a PS5 in here. I'm not so sure. Let's get it opened up. So, this is the main problem. There's just like a box full of parts. I feel like probably with no padding. There's holes in it, so I don't even know if all the parts are here. Like, I feel like I probably just got scammed. But one way to find out, let's open it up and see. Okay, I am seeing PS5 parts. That's good news, I think. Oh, wow. This is crazy. This is the part that worries me. The board is just loose in here. A lot of times what happens is these other parts will rub against the board and just knock a bunch of components off. And if that's the case, then this is probably not going to be fixable. Okay, so let's get this board out of here if we can. I don't want to damage it further. Okay, we'll look at that in a minute. Let's see what else we have here. Metal plate that looks to be in, actually decent. Oh, that's all messed up. Another metal plate. Liquid metal all over, as I would expect. Bent here. These heat sinks are damaged, so not good there. What else do we have in here? It does include a fan with the Wi-Fi cables all up inside of it. Okay. The fan might be the best part of this so far. All right, power supply looks okay. We do have the disk drive, and as far as I can tell, it's mostly undamaged. It's got liquid metal all over it. It's bent there, so that's a problem. And then we have this front plate here with the I/O board on it. Oh boy, it looks mostly there. Missing a ribbon cable here, but I think that's down in the box. What else do we have here? An empty bag. I'm guessing this used to have the screws and stuff in it, but they didn't bother to close it, so that's not gonna work very well. The fan cage, a little corner vent. This piece is just totally busted up, and honestly, I'm not even sure what that piece is for. Okay, heatsink clamp, Wi-Fi cable. So, out of this entire PS5, these are all the screws we have. We do have the battery too. Now, before we go any further, let's have a look at the board and see if this is even something we should try and salvage. Objectively, I was ripped off. This purchase was a ripoff. The seller did not deliver what he said he was going to deliver from the auction. Now, that being said, I'm looking at the board and there's definitely components missing over here. And I think there's a few others randomly on the board. I've got to get under a microscope to inspect some of the areas further. We've got liquid metal. Over here we need to clean up. The battery holder is broken. I don't see anything right offhand on the bottom that's components torn off. I think one of these guys might be missing, but overall, I think there might be a hope on this one. Now, the seller said that this PlayStation 5 did start up. It just didn't show anything on the screen. And I can see that somebody's been messing with the HDMI port. So there's a bunch of flux residue and just debris caught around here. The port is also kind of at an angle here. This is the main area that has a bunch of components missing, and that's all doable. I can get parts for those. The main problem we're gonna have is if there is randomly components missing off of the board that I don't notice or I don't know is supposed to be there, because one component missing can cause the entire board to just not work. And the other thing I wanted to show, this entire board is bent. You can see right here, there's a bend right there. So there's a lot of things wrong with this board, but strangely, I still do have hope. And I feel like this one might be worth trying to save. That being said, let's get all these components installed and inspect the board for anything else we might need. And then we'll try and start it up and see what happens. So I did pay $40 for this PS5, but they charged $90 for shipping. And you saw the condition it was when I received it. That was definitely not a $90 shipping job. So I'm gonna focus on that when I send them a message. All right, and here's the message we're sending to the seller. You can pause to read if you want to. I'm gonna send it and we'll see what they say. Now, one thing I do want to say about this message is I like to send a message like this, not asking for anything, not expecting anything, but just to see how the seller is going to respond and what they'll offer me. And if that offer is just not good enough, then I'll respond with a counter offer that I think is more appropriate. So we'll see what they say next, and then we'll craft a response. So here we are under the microscope. This is underneath the Wi-Fi chips. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 components to replace here. Looks like they are all capacitors, so we'll get those replaced, then we'll move on to the next spot that we need to fix. So first I'm going to put some flux on these pads where the components have been torn off, and then I'll use my soldering iron to remove the little piece of the component that's left on the pad. That'll just make a nice fresh pad for the new component to stick to. Once I have that done, I'll use my hot air soldering station to remove the capacitor off of a donor board and place it onto this board. So those 4 are all done. They're looking good. Let's move on to the next place that I found. And I was trying to decide if that component is still there. Okay, I think it might be. I'm not totally sure yet though. I'm gonna use some hot air and just heat this up and see if we can just push that component back down and if it'll stick. And it's broken. Okay, this one has a little tail. You can see this is just a piece of the old capacitor. So I'll just pull that off. Don't need that on there. Okay, got that. The next spot we have to work on is right over here. This is the underneath of one of the RAM chips. And we just need to inspect this. I think I'm missing that there, but I can't tell for sure. So I'll just compare it to the other board, the donor board we have. Yeah, and we are missing a component from right there. So we'll get that installed. And actually looking at that, I see a couple pads that are also torn off from there. So let's clean those off. That'll make this new capacitor stick how it should. There we go. Okay, oh boy. So as far as I can tell, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different components just in this one little area. This should be fun. So I'm gonna flux this up and actually run my hot air over this area just to kind of get those pads to kind of flatten out a little bit so we can have a look, more of a look at what we need to do here. Can also see if we can fix this little resistor while we're in here. Okay, I think we got that one. So I did fix a couple of these off camera. This guy right here was missing, and then over here, this guy was missing, and this guy was missing. So those are all fixed up. We got another capacitor right there. We have one of these large capacitors right here. And then for some reason, they also knocked off this component right here. I'm not sure why. This is just a connector for one of the Wi-Fi antennas. Not sure how that happened, but we need to replace it. So let's start with this capacitor right here. And that looks great. So there's one other spot near the APU that I need to look at right there. Doesn't really fit under my microscope very well, but let's take a look at those traces. They might be fine, but I can't quite see. Okay, yeah, they actually look just fine. I don't see any problems there. The traces are not broken, so that should be fine. I'm gonna give this board one more inspection, and then we'll get to the HDMI port. So I don't see any other missing components on the board. It is possible that I just don't see something, but I'm hoping that I got everything. Now we need to pay attention to this HDMI port. Now the seller said that somebody fixed it, but it didn't do any good. And looking at the port, I'm not convinced that's the case. Now, while it is true, I don't necessarily see anything wrong with this port. I also don't feel like it's been replaced. It doesn't look like the bottom pins, the mounting pins, have actually been melted. It looks like somebody tried to melt them, but they weren't able to do it. Also, I don't know what this is. I don't know what they were trying to use for flux. Looks like spray paint, but who knows? People try to use all sorts of stuff. Now with the HDMI port off, we can kind of see the full story. What I'm seeing here is what looks like corrosion. So I'm thinking what happened is somehow some sort of liquid got into the HDMI port and caused some corrosion in here. And that's what was causing the issue. And since they couldn't get the HDMI port off, then it still had the issue when they were done, quote unquote, trying to fix it. So firstly, what we're gonna do is clean this all up just a little bit, have a better look at it. So everything, actually, for the most part, everything looks good. I'm gonna clean it up a little bit better, and then we're going to install the new port. All right, and here we go with the brand new port. All right, and there is a look at the solder work, and that looks excellent. So now with this HDMI port installed, we can get this thing put into a chassis and see if it'll start up. So I did go through and recheck that I had all the components in place. That's what all these red lines are for, because I circled each one after I checked each area. So I'm pretty sure I have everything in place that was missing. But we need to take care of this liquid metal. I think first, I'll remove any hair that's on it. And then we need to re-spread it, both on the APU and on the heatsink. There we go, that's looking better there. And of course we do need to add a little bit just to make sure we have the perfect amount. There we go. And then over here, got a bit of a dry spot there. And now that that's done, I have a chassis to put this board into. So let's get this in and see if it'll start up. All right, and power cable plugging in right now. See if we have power to the disk drive. We do, that's good news. Okay, power button, here we go. Oh, it beeped once, but it's not doing anything. No lights, no nothing. Bummer. So I did take it back apart real quick and do a little bit of troubleshooting, and I did find a short, and I found that the short was leading to the south bridge. That's what heated up when I injected voltage, so unfortunately this PS5 is not fixable, at least for me. And unfortunately, I never heard back from the seller. It's been several days, so what I did is basically just opened up a return with eBay and let them know what was going on, added a whole bunch of pictures, and normally eBay will side with me, especially because the seller won't communicate, and I should be able to get my money back. I was really hoping I'd be able to get some messages from the seller to add to the story, but unfortunately, they just won't communicate. This video definitely didn't turn out how I wanted it to, but it should at least be entertaining. If you like this type of video, you'll probably like the video where I bought a broken PS5 that was in a house fire, and I tried to fix that. I'll put that video up on your screen now so you can come hang out with me over there and see if I was able to fix it. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you have a good one.